My name is Allison Pierce. I was 36 when I learned, from a hospital bed, exactly how little my own family intended to carry for me. 7 weeks before that night, I had delivered my daughter, Lily Pierce. Then a delivery truck blew through a red light on Briarwood Parkway while I was driving home after a late shift, and I woke up with 4 cracked ribs, a bruised lung, and my right arm trapped in plaster. My husband, Evan Pierce, was in Portland, 5 hours from getting back. Our baby needed someone that night. My mother lived 18 minutes from the hospital. She said no. She gave Evan one sentence, and that sentence ended 8 years of my life. Your sister doesn't create these situations. My sister was on a Bahamas cruise. My mother was planted in front of a slot machine. From that bed, using only my left hand, I did something that stopped 8 years, 4 months, and $430,000. And the thing that truly shattered them came 3 hours later, when an old man stepped into my room with a worn folder under his arm and said aloud what nobody in that family believed would ever be spoken. Welcome back to Dull Pain Stories, where quiet people finally close the account. I want to begin with the call because everything turned there. I came out of anesthesia in an emergency room bay divided by curtains, and the first thing I noticed was the weight of the cast, awkward and alien, dragging at my right arm. The second was the plastic bracelet biting into my other wrist. A nurse was repeating my name in that patient voice nurses use when they have already tried several times. My chest felt as if a compact car had rolled onto it and stayed there. Evan's voice came through the speaker beside my pillow. It was too controlled, which meant he was terrified. Allison, the sitter can't stay after midnight. I reached your mom. I knew before he finished. She isn't coming. Behind his voice, faint but clear, I heard a casino floor, electronic bells, a burst of fake celebration, the murmur of people waiting for luck to forgive them. My mother, Brenda Wallace, was at Raven Bluff Casino with friends. She told Evan she couldn't leave because my sister Kelsey was away and someone had to watch her cat. A cat. My 7-week-old daughter needed safe arms for one night while I was in trauma care. My mother's answer was that a cat had a prior claim. I did not cry. That matters because people imagine the woman in the hospital bed breaking open. I did not. I stared at the bracelet on my wrist, reached across the tray table with my left hand, and picked up my phone. There was work to do, and I had always been excellent at work that nobody else wanted. That, I would learn, was the problem. You need to understand the woman I was before the truck, or none of what happened next will make sense. I grew up in a rented half-duplex in Fairview, in a place where the furnace acted like it had opinions. I put myself through community college on closing shifts at a supermarket, transferred with a scholarship, and fought my way into corporate finance in a world my family considered mysterious and vaguely rude. By 32, I was a senior analyst for a national manufacturing company downtown, the person they brought into meetings when mistakes could not be allowed. I trust numbers. They don't flatter one child and drain the other. They don't pretend a lie is concern. They simply sit there, exact and unapologetic. Evan and I married when I was 27. We waited to have children because we wanted time, and because there was always a family emergency that seemed to need my money first. We lived carefully. 2 paychecks, 1 paid-off sedan, no credit card balances, no expensive habits. That quiet discipline is the only reason the next part was possible. For 8 years and 4 months, I had sent my parents $4,300 every month. I never said that figure out loud. Not to Evan, not to Kelsey, not to anyone. I told myself it was for my father's heart, for prescriptions, for keeping the house steady. I told myself I could carry it because I had always been the one built to carry. Somewhere along the way, being reliable stopped being a trait and became a cage. I am saying this clearly. I was not foolish. I was responsible until responsibility hollowed me out. Those are not the same thing. The first thing I did from that hospital bed was not revenge. It was triage. My baby needed care. With my left thumb, I opened the number for an overnight newborn agency Evan and I had researched before Lily was born, just in case. A dispatcher answered, and I explained the situation in a handful of clipped sentences. I need a licensed overnight nurse for a 7-week-old tonight, starting immediately. She asked whether the infant had any medical needs. She's healthy. I'm the one in the hospital. 35 minutes later, a nurse named Marissa Cole entered our house with the code Evan gave her, washed her hands, and sent me a picture of Lily asleep with one tiny fist tucked beneath her chin. I looked at that photo until the blur in my eyes cleared. The nurse beside my bed saw me place the phone down and asked whether any relatives could come. "It's handled," I said. "Next." She blinked. People do that when you skip the collapse they expected. I was not numb. I was sorting the room by urgency. Lily was safe. Evan was boarding the next flight. My bones would mend. One item remained, an item I had avoided for more than 8 years. My left hand was free, and my head felt colder and cleaner than it ever had. I opened my banking app. The login screen glowed against the dim curtain like a small, merciless window. Inside, under recurring payments, 4 transfers waited. I knew each label the way you know an old scar. Mom and Dad, $1,900. House help, $1,100. Dad medical, $850. Kelsey support, $450. $4,300 on the first of every month for 100 months. I had created the first transfer at 28, after my father called crying about a hospital bill he said would ruin them. I never once totaled it. I told myself the sum did not matter because family did not keep score. That night I made myself look. The app did not flinch. $430,000. Nearly $500,000 had left my life in quiet, automatic pieces while my mother told relatives she and my father managed without help. I pressed cancel. A confirmation appeared, recurring transfer canceled. I pressed the second, canceled. The third, the fourth, 4 taps, less than half a minute. 8 years and 4 months stopped as cleanly as water shuts off when you twist the handle far enough. I expected a rush of victory or grief. Neither came. What I felt was balance, the eerie calm of a spreadsheet that finally matches itself. As I was closing the app, my eyes caught one line in the old transaction notes under Dad Medical from a little over 2 years earlier. I had never scrolled deep enough to notice it. Loan K $36,000. K for Kelsey. Not cardiology. Not surgery, my sister. I locked the phone and lay still while the monitor counted the beats I had left. The question I had avoided for years rose up, and there was no one left in the room to answer it for me. Why had I kept doing it? The simple answer people like to give is that I was desperate to be loved. That answer is tidy, and it is wrong. If you have ever been the dependable one, you already know the truth is stranger. I had confused being necessary with being secure. I thought that if I was the wall holding the house up, no one would dare remove me from the house. My grandmother understood that long before I did. Her name was Eleanor Wallace, my mother's mother. She was tall, sharp, and smelled faintly of black coffee and motor oil, because she had spent half her life near machines and men who underestimated her. She never needed volume to win a room. The year before she died, she squeezed my hand after Thanksgiving dinner and said, "Someone has to watch the money in this family, and your mother won't. It might have to be you." At the time, I thought she meant I should be generous. Now I think she meant I should keep my eyes open. Eleanor died the previous spring, and what I had been told was a peaceful sleep. I was pregnant, buried in work, and too tired to ask questions about papers, property, or wills. I assumed my mother had handled whatever needed handling, the same way I assumed my money was buying my father's medicine. I had spent a lifetime calling my assumptions love. In that hospital bed, with my daughter safe in the arms of a stranger because my mother had chosen a cat, I finally understood I had been funding a story about my family, not the family itself. Evan called again from his connection and recited my mother's words because he knew I would want them exactly. He had called around 9, 20, told her I was in surgery, told her the baby needed someone, and asked her to drive the 18 minutes. She sighed, he said. That long sigh she used whenever she wanted the other person to feel unreasonable for having a need. Kelsey was finally getting a real vacation. Someone had to feed the cat. Besides, Allison always figures things out. Then she said it. Your sister doesn't create these situations. As if the truck had looked me up first and decided I was the daughter suited for impact. As if my newborn's first night without me was merely poor scheduling. Evan's voice split while he told me. I told him Lily was fine, I was fine enough, and he needed to get on the plane. After we hung up, I opened a social app I usually ignored. Kelsey's story floated at the top. She was filming a bright deck somewhere at sea, a blue drink in her hand, sun flashing on the water. The caption read, "Finally living the life I deserve." Kelsey Wallace, 31, aspiring lifestyle creator, 13,500 followers, and a $450 monthly cushion she believed came from some vague family account. I did not comment. I did not throw the phone. I opened messages and typed 3 words to a contact saved simply as Grandpa W. We should talk. The typing dots appeared at once, as if he had been waiting for that message for 8 years. Maybe he had. Before he answered, my phone lit up with a video call from Kelsey, somewhere near the Bahamas. I accepted with my left hand, my face half hidden by the hospital room shadows. She did not notice the ceiling tiles. She did not notice the cast. She did not ask why I was lying flat after midnight. Allison, finally, she said, phone too close to her face, so all I saw was sunburn and impatience. My card got declined at the spa. It was humiliating. I waited. Silence has always made Kelsey nervous, so she rushed into it. Mom said the family account always handles this stuff. Did you change something? There it was, the architecture of the lie, neat and visible, the family account. My sister truly believed the money appeared from a shared Wallace reserve, some sensible pool our mother managed. She did not know it had been me. Brenda had made sure of that. Did you know I was in an accident? I asked. Kelsey blinked. Wait, what? Are you being dramatic? Can you just fix the card? We dock in Nassau tomorrow and I have content to shoot. A steel drum rhythm rose behind her, bright and obscene. I'll look into it, I said, which was true. I have to go, which was also true. I ended the call before she could fill another silence. My sister was not exactly malicious. She was, in some ways, worse than malicious. She was a person who had never been required to picture the bottom of the well, because no one had ever shown her the person lowering the bucket. They moved me to a regular room the next morning. That was when the Wallace family group chat began buzzing on the rolling table beside me. There were cousins in it, aunts, people who rarely spoke unless there was a birthday or a funeral. I usually left it muted. This time the screen kept lighting up until I opened it. My mother had been arranging the stage. Her message began, I am devastated to share that Allison is punishing her parents again and has cut off support out of cruelty. Again. As if my body had not just been opened and repaired. As if I were throwing a tantrum instead of lying under hospital lights with tape on my skin. She wrote that my father's condition was delicate, that they had sacrificed everything for me, that she did not know how his medicine would be covered now. Then she added the line she had polished for public use. We have always handled our own burdens, but this is beyond cruel. We have always handled our own burdens. For 8 years and 4 months, she had said that to relatives while my payments landed on the first. Aunt Diane Wallace had already replied with broken heart emojis and shameful, you don't abandon a sick father. A cousin sent prayers. Another said family should come before pride. Nobody knew the truth because I had never dragged it into the room. I held the phone and felt the old instinct come awake. Explain, soften, make everyone comfortable. Keep the peace even if peace costs you blood. I placed the phone face down. Explaining was the old job. The new job was evidence. I knew where evidence lived. Evan came through my hospital door at 10:45 the next morning, unshaven and gray with exhaustion, carrying Lily in her car seat and the diaper bag slung across him. He had flown home, relieved Marissa, and driven straight to me. When he saw my jaw bruised and my arm casted, his eyes filled. "Don't," I whispered, because if he cried, I would, and I still had things to do. He lifted Lily out and placed her carefully against my chest. For 1 minute, the room went quiet except for her little sleeping breaths and the machines. That minute is the only part of that week I would choose to live again. Then my phone rang. It was my father, Richard Wallace, 66 years old, the man whose heart I believed I had been helping keep steady for nearly a decade. "Allie," he said, using a nickname from childhood. His voice shook. I didn't understand it was this bad. The crash. The money, I didn't know all of it. For one suspended breath, I thought he might do it. I thought he might stand up inside his own house for once. "I never wanted you to carry everything," he said. Then, behind him, my mother's voice cut in, low and sharp, asking who was on the phone. The line muffled. When he returned, his voice had lost its spine. "I should go, rest up." He hung up. That was my father summarized in 40 seconds. A decent man who had spent 41 years learning that the safest action in Brenda Wallace's house was no action at all. That afternoon, Evan brought my laptop. He set it on the rolling table and adjusted the bed so I could sit. With my left hand and a great deal of patience, I logged into the bank, downloaded 8 years and 4 months of statements, and built a spreadsheet. This is what I do for a company worth billions. I could do it for myself. I pulled every transfer, matched every category, and sorted the $430,000 by where it actually went. The picture that formed was not my mother's story. The house payments I thought I had helped cover showed up only 8 times, not 100. My father's real medical costs, the cardiologist, hospital copays, and prescriptions, came to about $58,000 across the entire period. So where had the rest gone? I filtered by cash withdrawal location. A pattern emerged immediately. Hundreds of withdrawals, most made in amounts small enough to look harmless, all clustered within a few miles of Raven Bluff Casino. My mother had not happened to be at a casino on the one night my baby needed her. My mother had been feeding that casino with my earnings for most of a decade while telling the family she managed alone. A second stream ran in another direction, quieter but consistent. Year after year, it led to Kelsey. I leaned back as far as my ribs allowed and let the numbers speak because numbers had never once tried to charm me out of reality. Here are the figures because everything later depends on them. Of $430,000, roughly $58,000 matched my father's genuine medical care. About $9,600 had reached the mortgage. That left $362,400. Of that, about $252,000 had been pulled as cash near Raven Bluff. Another $110,400 had gone to Kelsey, including the $36,000 line labeled Loan K, hidden beneath my father's medical category because Brenda knew nobody would question that one. That loan had paid for a year of brand building, a leased crossover, and a photographer in Punta Cana. I printed the summary on the hospital unit's small printer. 1 page, 8 years and 4 months in 12 rows. Then Evan showed me one more thing. He had gone back through the group chat and found a message my mother had sent Aunt Diane months earlier, bragging that she and Richard had covered Kelsey's brand themselves because that was what devoted parents did. We covered it ourselves. I looked at the screenshot, then at my single clean page. Something inside me became very quiet. I was not going to send a furious paragraph. I was not going to argue line by line. I was going to let the paper enter the room in front of the same audience Brenda had performed for. Then I was going to leave the stage and never pay for it again. "It's handled," I told Evan. This time, the words felt less like triage and more like sentence passed. I want to pause for only a moment because someone listening to this may recognize the shape of it. I spent 8 years and 4 months believing I was paying for my father's heart. In truth, I was paying for slot machines and sponsored-looking beach photos. If you have ever sent money because you trusted a family story, open one statement. Just one. Read it as if it belonged to someone you love. Because the next part is the hinge. The door opened 3 hours after I canceled the transfers, and my grandfather walked in carrying the folder that changed the whole family. My mother learned the payments had stopped the way she learned everything important, when it cost her. The first of the month came. No deposit arrived. By noon, her name was flashing on my phone. I let it ring twice. The third time I answered, not because I wanted to hear her, but because hiding was another old habit. Her voice was warm, thick, and sweet, the voice she used for church ladies and restaurant servers. "Honey, how are you? We've been sick with worry about you and that little baby." Sick with worry, from the woman who had chosen a cat. "I'm recovering," I said. "Thank you." A pause. I could feel her shifting position. "I noticed the account didn't come through. Is the bank having trouble?" "No." Silence. Then the guilt arrived exactly on schedule. "After all your father and I did for you, we drove you everywhere, we kept you fed, we made sure you had a roof." I let her talk. She circled the same old drain until she reached the sentence that had always worked. "You know, Kelsey doesn't create these situations." The third time in 3 days. This time I did not explain. I said, "I know, Mom," and I let it mean what she had not meant. Kelsey never created emergencies because Kelsey had me. Now Kelsey had a declined card and a car lease she could not carry. "I need to feed Lily," I said, and I ended the call while my mother was still talking. I had never done that to her in 36 years. When a mother cannot move you, she sends the aunt. That afternoon, Aunt Diane Wallace texted me directly, something she had done maybe twice in my adult life and both times for donations to a fundraiser. Her message was all secondhand outrage. "I am disgusted. Your parents are barely surviving and you cut them off while your father is sick. Your grandmother would be ashamed. Family supports family." The mention of a leaner nearly landed. She was the only person in that family whose disappointment I had ever feared. Then I remembered what a leaner had actually said. Someone had to watch the family money because my mother would not. Diane had the story upside down. I did not write an essay. I attached the one-page summary and typed one sentence beneath it. "This is where the money Brenda says she managed on her own actually went. The Raven Bluff withdrawals are hers. Ask her." Then I put the phone down and changed Lily with one hand, calmer than I had felt in years. The phone buzzed once. Diane typing. Then the dots vanished. No answer came, not that afternoon, not that night. I pictured her sitting at her kitchen counter, staring at 12 rows of numbers she could not scold into being false. That is the thing about a spreadsheet. You may call a woman dramatic, you may call a daughter ungrateful. A column of withdrawals does not care. It simply remains true. I had spent my life managing the family's emotions. It had not occurred to me that a fact, delivered without decoration, could do more damage than any speech. Brenda Wallace is many things, but she is never without another move. When sweetness failed and Aunt Diane failed, she reached for the stage she controlled best. She called a family dinner. The invitation came to the Wallace group chat in her wounded matriarch tone. "Let's gather Sunday to meet baby Lily properly and clear the air. Allison, I hope you and Evan will come so we can put this misunderstanding behind us." Misunderstanding. 5 days after she left my newborn without family care, it had become a misunderstanding. Evan read the message over my shoulder. "We don't have to go. We can stay home and let them live with it." He was right. We did not have to attend. But I knew exactly what Sunday was for. It was not for Lily. It was to place me in a room full of relatives and press until I restarted the payments. Brenda wanted witnesses for my surrender, so I gave her witnesses, not the surrender. I replied with 2 words, "Will come." Then I called Grandpa W again. We spoke for 43 minutes. At the end, he asked one question in his dry, gravelly voice. "Do you want quiet or do you want true?" I looked down at Lily sleeping in the crook of my uninjured arm, the tiny person I had nearly missed because I had been financing a lie. "True," I said. "Then I'll bring the folder," he answered. I did not ask what was in it. Some part of me already understood that whatever he carried would end this cleanly. But before the dinner, I have to return to the night of the crash, because that is when the promised part happened. 3 hours after I canceled the transfers, before Evan had landed, My hospital door opened slowly. My grandfather stepped inside. Walter Wallace was 80, my mother's father, buttoned into a pressed flannel shirt, moving with a cane he clearly hated needing. I had not told him the hospital. He had called the two nearest emergency departments until he found me. Under his free arm was a thick manila folder, soft at the corners, held together by two pale rubber bands so old they looked ready to crumble. He set it at the foot of my bed as carefully as if it could bruise. Then he looked at my cast, my swollen face, the tubes, and his jaw tightened. "Your mother said it was a little bump," he said. I drove past the turn twice before I believed she might be lying. He lowered himself into the vinyl chair, folded both hands over the cane, and spoke the sentence I would carry for the rest of my life. I always knew. Knew what? His eyes went to the folder instead of my face. About the money, about every year of it, about where your mother spends her afternoons, about what she tells this family while you drain yourself dry. He tapped the folder once. "Not tonight, you already have enough. We'll do it right, in a room where she cannot slide sideways out of it." He was right. Some truths only become real to a family when everyone has to hear them together. Before he left, Walter gave me one piece because he said I should not walk into Sunday blind. He told me about Alina. My grandmother had not simply faded in peaceful ignorance, as I had been told. During her final year, she had grown suspicious. She noticed Brenda's spending, the newer car, the casino comments that stopped sounding occasional. She began asking quiet questions about where help for Brenda's house was truly coming from. One evening, she cornered Walter and said, "Somebody is keeping that woman afloat, and it isn't us. Find who it is." It took him time. He was old, and banks do not give answers easily. But Walter had kept books for a grain operation for 42 years. He knew how to follow a number through dust and noise. He found me. He found a granddaughter sending away nearly every spare dollar while her mother dug deeper and smiled for company. Alina wanted to fix it before she died. She ran out of time, Walter said, so she did what she could. He would not tell me the rest yet. He only said Alina had spent her last clear months with a lawyer, that both their signatures were on the papers, and that an attorney in Carson City believed the structure would hold. "A trust can be built to protect what needs protecting," Walter said. "Your grandmother and I built ours that way." At the door, he paused. "She was not ashamed of you, Allison. I don't care what Brenda says Sunday. Alina trusted you with everything. That is why she chose you." Then he left, and I did not sleep. The day before the dinner, Walter came by our house to check on me. Lily slept nearby. Evan made coffee. I asked the question I had carried since childhood. Why Kelsey? Why did Mom spend our whole lives treating her like a prize and me like equipment? Walter turned his cup slowly between both hands. "You need to understand how Alina raised Brenda," he said. I braced myself. I loved my grandmother, and love does not make people simple. Alina was fair most days, but she was hard. She had a favorite. It wasn't your mother. It was your Uncle Peter. Brenda grew up being the child who handled things while Peter got the softness. The floor seemed to shift under me because I knew that job. I had lived inside it. "Then she had you," Walter said. "And you were calm, capable, quiet. Too much like the girl she had been forced to be. I think she resented seeing that reflection. When Kelsey came along loud, needy, shining, Brenda got to become the mother of the favored child instead of the forgotten child. She gave Kelsey everything she wished someone had given her." He set the cup down. "That explains the shape. It does not excuse the damage." I sat with that. My mother was not a cartoon villain. She was a woman who had inherited a wound and handed it to me like an heirloom, then placed a crown on my sister's head because it made the past hurt less. "The casino," Walter added, "was the only room where she felt she might win without being useful first." I understood her. Completely. I was still done. That night, I decided what Sunday would not be. It would not be a shouting match. Brenda wins shouting matches. She can turn volume into victimhood with the skill of a concert pianist. The moment I raised my voice, I would become the ungrateful daughter in front of witnesses. She wanted that version of me. I would give her paper instead. That was the entire difference. My mother's weapons were warm lies, scheduled guilt, and a story performed for relatives. Mine were a printed page, a screenshot on Evan's phone, and the folder in Walter's hands. She would try to make everyone feel. I would ask everyone to look. In the kitchen, while Lily slept, I told Evan the plan. I'm not arguing with her, I am putting the numbers on the table. Can you stay calm in front of her? He asked. I thought about every check, every dinner I had swallowed, every apology I had made for needing less than I gave. I've been calm my entire life, I said. Sunday, I stopped being silent. Those are different things. It took a truck, a cast, and an old folder to teach me that. I folded the one-page summary and tucked it into Lily's diaper bag under the wipes, where nobody would think to search. Kelsey flew home Saturday and called me from the airport. The call told me how little her world had changed while mine had been stripped to studs. Okay, the cruise was basically ruined, she announced before hello. I was stressed the whole time about my card. Do you understand how embarrassing that was? I held the phone and watched Lily move in her sleep. Kelsey took my silence as permission. Mom said you had some kind of episode and froze the family money. Fine, have your feelings, but I have a launch coming up and I literally cannot operate without the account. Can you fix it before dinner tomorrow so we don't have to make it a whole thing? Fix it before dinner. As if my accident, surgery, and abandoned newborn were a clogged sink delaying her schedule. I asked one question. Kelsey, where do you think that money comes from? For the first time I could remember, she paused. From Mom and Dad, she said, but her voice lifted at the end. A question disguised as certainty. It's a family thing, she added. I'll see you tomorrow, I said. Some bills have to be read in your own name before you believe them. She did not know it yet, but she was about to learn who had been underwriting her life for 8 years and 4 months in a dining room full of people with no card reader to blame. On Sunday, Evan drove us to my parents' house, the house I had believed I was helping save. I sat in the driveway for a moment, steadying my breathing against the ache in my ribs. The hospital bracelet was still on my wrist, 5 days old, softened and gray from showers and sleep. I had kept it on purpose. In the car, I finally peeled it off and placed it in my coat pocket. I wanted it with me, a small hard record of where I had been when my mother protected a cat. Evan carried Lily's car seat. Behind us from the curb came the slow tap of a cane. Walter approached in his Sunday flannel with the manila folder pinned beneath his arm. He had insisted on arriving separately so Brenda would not see us together and prepare. Ready? He asked on the porch. Through the front window I saw them gathered. Aunt Diane and 2 cousins, my father in his chair. My mother moving among them with a coffee pot, playing the wounded hostess, queen of a room I had financed without ever being named in it. Kelsey sat on the couch arm, scrolling, tanned, and confused. I'm ready, I said and meant it. Walter opened the door with the head of his cane and we walked in from the cold. A husband, a baby, a cast, a hospital bracelet in my pocket, a spreadsheet in the diaper bag, and a folder my mother did not yet know to fear. The room went quiet. My mother turned, coffee pot in hand, smile already arranged. The performance began. I will give Brenda this, she was gifted. She set the pot down, pressed one hand to her chest, and crossed toward Lily with tears shining before anyone had said a word. Oh, there's my sweet grandbaby, she cooed, reaching. Evan angled the car seat away with polite, immovable calm. Her hands fluttered in the empty air. She turned that rejection into Act 1. Facing the room instead of me, she said, I'm just so relieved we're together. This has been the hardest week of my life. Her life. The week I spent hospitalized and my daughter spent a night with a stranger had been the hardest week of Brenda's life. She explained that I had suffered a little accident, thank heaven, and had used it as a reason to punish my struggling parents. She said I had abandoned them in their older years over some imagined hurt. She dabbed at her eyes. Aunt Diane nodded, but not as firmly as before. She would not quite meet my eyes. I knew 12 rows were sitting in the back of her mind. My father stared at his hands. Kelsey finally looked up, sensing there was a part in the play she had not rehearsed. Then my mother delivered the line. The one she had relied on for 31 years, now offered to the whole room with damp eyes and injured dignity. I don't know where this cruelty comes from, Your sister doesn't create these situations. The fourth time. In that warm room, with everyone watching, Brenda handed me the exact sentence she had used to leave my newborn without family. She did not realize she had loaded the weapon and placed it in my palm. The room waited for me to cry, yell, defend myself, collapse. I reached into the diaper bag under the wipes and removed one folded sheet. I did not stand. I did not make a speech. I unfolded the page with my good hand, smoothed it against my thigh, and laid it in the center of the dining table beneath the light. Then I said, in the same voice I used for quarterly forecasts, "You're right, Mom. Kelsey doesn't create these situations. I want everyone to see why." I pushed the page forward. This is every dollar I sent this family over 8 years and 4 months, $430,000. The room became very still. Aunt Diane leaned in despite herself. The first rows are legitimate. 58,000 for Dad's heart, doctors, medicine, copays, 9,600 toward this house. I let that settle. The rest is the money Mom tells you she managed without help. About 252,000 in cash withdrawals, most within a few miles of Raven Bluff Casino. Another 110,400 to Kelsey, including 36,000 hidden under Dad's medical category. A small sound moved through the room, the breath people take when a story begins to split. Kelsey's head lifted slowly. "That's where your card money came from," I told her, gently because she had not built the lie first. "It came from me. It always came from me." My mother's performance had nowhere to land. The tears on her face no longer belonged to a wounded mother. They belonged to a woman caught with witnesses. I looked at her and kept my voice level. "It's handled." Those 2 words carried 5 days of pain and 8 years of silence. They landed like a gavel. Brenda opened her mouth, and I watched her reach for the only tool she had left. She would call me twisted. She would say I had misunderstood, exaggerated, betrayed them, stolen dignity from sick parents. She would drown the page in feeling if the room let her. "This is sick," she started. "You have twisted everything. Your father and I never." That was when Walter leaned his cane against the table and laid the manila folder beside my page. The rubber bands resisted. They had been on the folder so long they left faint grooves when he removed them. He opened it with the slow hands of a man who had waited a year to stop a lie. When he spoke, his gravelly voice filled the room more completely than Brenda's tears ever had. "I knew, I always knew." He spoke to the family, not to his daughter. Eleanor knew too. Near the end, she asked me to trace the money. He pulled out a stapled document with a law firm's name on the cover, not from the town where Brenda had friends, from a firm in Carson City. "This is the trust your grandmother and I made. Last spring, we moved most of what we owned into it, the land, this house which sits on that land, the accounts." He looked at the room, then at Brenda. "It does not pass to Brenda. She does not control a dollar of it." My mother stopped breathing for one visible second. Walter continued. "It goes to Allison and to Lily. There is a fund for the baby's education. The rest stays in trust, exactly as Eleanor wanted, where it cannot be gambled away. The attorney says it is clean, we made sure." My mother's face changed in a way I had never seen. The wounded hostess disappeared. Underneath was panic. The house she stood inside, the kingdom she had ruled, the inheritance she had assumed was hers, had just been placed on the table with signatures and staples, and handed to the daughter she had abandoned from a hospital room. The room was no longer looking at me. Everyone was looking at her. This is where people hope for an apology. "I want you ready for the truth." It did not come. Brenda tried everything else first. She sobbed loudly. When nobody rushed to comfort her, she spun toward my father. "Richard, are you going to let them do this to me? This is your mess too. The surgery, the bills, all of it." My father flinched. For a moment, the same moment I had heard on the phone, he lifted his head. His mouth opened. I thought maybe now, maybe finally. "Allison is right," he said, barely above a whisper. "Brenda, the casino, you know it got." My mother's head snapped toward him. The look she gave him was 41 years old. He stopped. He looked down at his hands. That was his final word on the subject. I let him go then. Not angrily. Simply and completely. My mother turned the panic into rage. "You'll regret this," she hissed at me. I'll fight it, I'll hire someone, you cannot take a person's home, Walter answered before I could. It was never your home, Brenda, it was your mother's, and clean paperwork is hard to beat. Not impossible, but hard. Even then, he would not lie. Kelsey was crying in the corner now. Real tears. Not for me, not yet. For the sudden knowledge that the well had a bottom and she had been standing on the person trapped beneath it. I had one thing left to do. I stood slowly because broken ribs do not permit grand exits. Evan reached toward me, but I shook my head. I took Lily's car seat and set it carefully in front of me. From my coat pocket, I pulled the gray hospital bracelet I had worn for 5 days. I did not explain it. I looped it once around the handle of my daughter's car seat and let it hang there. A small, ugly record of the night I nearly died and my family checked a cruise schedule. Brenda was still speaking. Threats had softened into pleading. Allison, honey, we can fix this, we're family. But her voice no longer reached any place in me that opened. I turned to Aunt Diane, pale and silent near the table. Thank you for reading the numbers, I said. I know you'll tell the truth. It was not a threat, it was a fact. She understood and nodded. Then I looked once at my father. He met my eyes. I gave him a small nod that meant I understood that I was not going to punish him in that room and that I was still leaving. Evan picked up the diaper bag. Walter gathered the folder and his cane. The 3 generations Brenda least wanted together walked back out into the cold evening. With my good hand, I pulled the door shut softly. Slamming it would have meant I still wanted something from the people inside. I did not. The trust held. Brenda called 2 lawyers, and both told her the same thing Walter's attorney had told him. Clean documents signed by competent people are not easy to undo. The threats faded. She and my father remained in the house because the trust allowed them to live there for the rest of their lives. I was not interested in putting an aging man with a damaged heart on the curb, no matter what his silence had cost me. But Raven Bluff no longer ran on my salary. Kelsey found a real marketing job, one where nobody cared how many followers she had. Months later, she texted me 3 words, "Where did it go?" I sent her the same 1-page summary I had placed on the dining table. She never replied. She also never asked me for money again. Aunt Diane told the family the truth. The Wallace group chat went quiet for a long time. My father calls sometimes, only when he is alone in the car. I answer. Marissa Cole stayed for 2 weeks while my ribs healed, and she still sends Lily a birthday card. Walter sold his small place across town and moved into a rental 12 minutes from us. He comes to Sunday dinner with the folder under his arm, sets it on my bookshelf, and says, "In case anyone forgets." That is where the story ends. Not with an apology, not with a miracle, and not with the family suddenly becoming honest because honesty was convenient. It ends with a hospital bracelet on my daughter's car seat, a folder on my shelf, and 4 canceled transfers that never started again.